So here we have it, another release by the brand Atelier Materi. I actually did a video, I believe last year, on Cacao Porcelana. I'm going to leave a card to that up here. Beautiful chocolatey fragrance, a little powdery but very gourmand in the most delightful way with a touch of an animalic undertone. Here we have a rose-based offering. This one is called Rose Ardoise. I'm excited to give you my thoughts on this brand new release, so make sure to stay tuned. Now, before I begin my perfume review of Rose Ardoise by Atelier Materi and I tell you all about this fragrance, what it smells like, what kind of a vibe I get from it, performance, longevity, all that good stuff, I do want to start things off by mentioning that if you are a fan of fragrance-related content, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it, hit the bell icon, and give it a thumbs up if you take something of value from today's episode. Now, this does happen to be a bit of a spicy rose. So you do have nutmeg in the heart, you also have pink pepper or skinus mole, and then you have this rose ingredient that is really delightful, very well done, with a bit of an earthy dry down. Now, you have vetiver in the dry down, you also have leather, and leather in and of itself can actually be a little spicy, it can be a little animalic at times, and the leather, in my experience, leather accord is usually comprised of saffron or ingredients that kind of give off that vibe, and of course there's also ambroxan in here, which gives it this bright, sparkling, and almost oceanic feel without this being an aquatic by any stretch of the imagination. Now, the name Rose Ardoise, it translates to slate pink or slate rose, and so I'm really excited to make that synesthetic connection throughout the course of this review. Let's go ahead and start things off with the presentation. So as soon as this fragrance opens, you will, of course, pick up on the fact that this is a spicy rose. And it's done in a very nicely done spicy way. Now, of course, a lot of times the spice can be overbearing. If there's an overdose of black pepper or any number of other spices, that can be a little bit of a turnoff, or they can be animalic. In the case of this fragrance, however, the spice is very gentle, very well done, and it's not overbearing. And I think the spice was chosen very meticulously and very thoughtfully, in the sense that there is this pink pepper ingredient in the opening. And pink pepper, yes, while it does convey a bit of a spicy profile, because I actually have real pink pepper at home and I've cooked with it before, pink pepper also gives off a bit of a rosy vibe. And so I feel like the rosy vibe from the pink pepper kind of combines with the actual rose that is found in the heart of this perfume. However, it does have this earthy base that I think also kind of sustains the perfume, increases the longevity in a very nicely done way. But it's that spiciness that kind of reminds me a little bit of Rose 31 by Le Labo, a fragrance that I've owned for many, many years. And the reason I say that is because I think there's a touch of an animalic dry down on account of the leather, and Rose 31 can be a little bit animalic on account of the cumin that's in there. So they are quite different, right? I'm not saying that this smells very similar to it or that it's a carbon copy, but I think fans of Rose 31 will really appreciate the DNA of this fragrance. And, you know, it's a composition that would fall under the same olfactive classification, the same genre, while still doing things its own way. In my experience, nutmeg has been one of those spicy ingredients that work really well in aquatic/oceanic fragrances too. So because there's ambroxan in the base of this fragrance, I feel like that links up with the nutmeg to kind of create this aura of freshness. And even though it's not reflected in the note breakdown, I think there is a little bit of citrus in the opening, just something to give it that bright, sparkling feel. If it's not the citrus, I would, surmise that it's coming from the ambroxan, but it is something that you'll notice in the opening. So it's a little bit fresh, it's a little bit spicy, and very rosy. Rose is definitely sitting at the heart of this composition. So if you're a fan of rose, this is definitely one that you have to check out. And personally, I love rose. You know, rose is one of those ingredients that is very romantic, very sensual, definitely evokes vibes of like Valentine's Day. but it's something that can be worn on a date. It's something that is also very tranquil. And so I personally love the effect that rose has on the limbic system, and of course your vibe and your feelings, your emotions, and I find it to be a spirit lifter in many ways. And so, you know, when it comes to rose fragrances, of course, there's Lyric for Men by Amouage and Portrait of a Lady by Frederic Malle. So there's so many rose fragrances that I truly love and really enjoy. And I love that this fragrance takes it on the spicy side of things with those ingredients that I mentioned. Now, the leather accord is really interesting because it does dry down to something that is not overly leathery. So it's not going to be too rough and tumble or too aggressive, but there's this smoothness about it with a hint of spice. And I think that that's what's being played off as the leather in here, because as I'm sure you know, there's no such thing as real leather in perfumes. It's all, you know, an accord, a combination of other ingredients. And so just the vetiver, which gives it that classy earthiness combined with the leather, is very, very nicely done. So this is a rose that doesn't smell overly fresh or overly citric. It is a rose that doesn't smell overly floral, and I think it's perfectly unisex as well. You know, I think a lot of fragrances would be considered by many to be feminine if the rose is combined with other floral ingredients that can be sharp or heady. That's not the case in this fragrance. So you are going to get that heart of rose, but then you also have those grounding, very gender neutral ingredients like the leather, like the vetiver. And so if you're looking for a spicy take on rose, and you also happen to be a fan of fragrances like Rose 31 by Le Labo, you definitely have to check this one out. Let's go ahead and finish things off with my overall assessment. So first up, in terms of the uniqueness and the overall smell, this is a fairly unique fragrance in the sense that they combined rose with ambroxan. And that's a combination or a blend that you don't often find in fragrances. And do bear in mind that it does stay in the family of like a Rose 31, but it still does things its own way, which is really appreciated. Overall smell is really pleasant. And I would also go as far as saying it's not as animalic as Rose 31. And so definitely gentle, has this fresh quality about it while still having this earthy texture in the base. Longevity on this one, you can expect about 8 hours on your skin. The projection was really good for the first hour of application. It didn't start to sit closer to the skin until about that 5.5 to 6 hour mark. And it was really at that 8 hour mark when it kind of disappeared. And then of course you can reapply or you can apply something else depending on what you're doing that evening, I suppose. In terms of the versatility, I think this one is perfect for dressed up occasions. You can wear this one casually as well, just because I feel like rose has a serene quality that I really do enjoy on a casual basis. But of course, these are just recommendations. Wear it whenever you want. Do whatever makes you happy. Perfectly unisex in my opinion. I think this one, on account of the spice, will appeal to somebody who's a little bit older. And I can see this one doing really well in the intermediary season. So spring and autumn. And of course, spring is coming. And so I think now is probably the perfect time to wear it. That spiciness could do pretty well in the winter time as well. You might need to spray a little bit more liberally in the winter time, but the longevity is good. So please keep that in mind. You can expect about 7 to 8 hours on your skin. In terms of the presentation, I really do love the presentation for these fragrances. Really, really heavy bottles, really heavy caps as well. And my final verdict on this fragrance is, if you are a fan of spicy rose fragrances, this one certainly needs to be at the top of your list because it has the nutmeg, the pink pepper, and those grounding earthy ingredients that really give it really good longevity. And so certainly one that I would recommend if you're a fan of spicy rose, and definitely one that I'm going to be wearing, especially if I have any formal occasions coming up over the course of the next few months, because springtime is the perfect time to wear this one. Thanks again for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. That was my review of Rose Ardoise by Atelier Materi. If you own or have tried this fragrance or any fragrance from the brand, let me know what you think. Leave a comment down below. Also, please don't forget to support the channel by subscribing to it. If you enjoyed this video, hit the bell, give it a thumbs up. It would really mean a lot to me. Thanks for watching. Love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.